I found a strange black cube at a flea market. Part 1. Chapter 1, The Market Where I Should Have Walked Away. My name is Alex, and I'm writing this from the other side of the gates of hell, because I was stupid enough to turn the cube. Not once. Not twice. 3 times. That's all it took. They say curiosity killed the cat, but they don't tell you what happens when the cat rips open reality just to see what's behind it. I wish I could say this is a warning. But it's not. It's a confession. Maybe the last one I'll ever make, before the thing that's wearing my face gets to you. It started on a rainy Tuesday in a part of town no one talks about unless they are trying to sound edgy or get mugged. I was wandering without purpose, an aimless walk, headphones dead, coffee cold, the kind of day that feels like background noise to someone else's real life. That's when I saw it, the market. Not the trendy kind with fresh fruit and overpriced incense. This was more like a rot, a living scab tucked between 2 boarded up shops. Old tarps sagging with water, piles of junk no one should still own, and the stench of wet cardboard and cigarette ash. I should have walked away. But something pulled me in. Not physically, just a slow curiosity, like being nudged by a dream you can't quite remember. My eyes drifted over rusted tools, yellowing Polaroids, taxidermy animals with teeth too big for their mouths, and then I saw it. The cube. It was sitting on a red velvet cloth, like it was important. No price tag. Just there. Small enough to fit in my palm. Blacker than black. Like it wasn't reflecting light, just swallowing it. The surface was covered in symbols that made my eyes itch if I stared too long. And behind the table, the man. I hesitate to call him human, because something felt off. His eyes were milky, but not blind. His skin was grayish, like it had been boiled. He smiled when he saw me looking at the cube, and I swear I heard the smile before I saw it. Take it, he rasped. I looked at him, then at the cube. How much? He shook his head. It already chose you. Every instinct in my body told me to leave. Run. Burn the stall and salt the earth. But my hand moved on its own, picked it up. It was cold at first. Then warm. Then pulsing. I shoved it into my coat pocket and walked away like I'd stolen something. The man just watched me go, humming something off-key. I didn't recognize the tune, but it made my teeth hurt. That night, I put the cube on my kitchen counter. And that's when the symbols started moving. Chapter 2, It moved when I didn't. At first, I told myself it was just a weird souvenir. I put the cube on the counter next to my toaster and forgot about it. I even laughed at myself for how jittery I'd been at the market. It's just a creepy little trinket, I told myself. Nothing more. The first night, nothing happened. Or maybe I was too tired to notice. I crashed hard, didn't even dream. The second night, things changed. I came home from work and found the cube sitting on the windowsill, on the opposite side of the apartment from where I'd left it. I live alone. No pets. No visitors. No drafts. No reason. But there it was. Sitting perfectly centered, like it wanted to look outside. I picked it up, frowning. It was still cold, smooth as obsidian, but heavier, maybe. Or maybe my hand just wanted it to feel heavier. I moved it back to the counter. Told myself I must have absent-mindedly put it there before I left. The next morning, it was on my pillow. That's when the symbols started changing. At first, they were just strange runes, hard to read, hard to look at. But they began to shift when I wasn't looking directly at them. I'd glance away, and when I looked back, the cube's surface would be different, new lines, new angles, like it was working through a language I didn't understand. Like it was writing itself. I set up my phone to record it overnight. The next day, I played the footage. Nothing moved. The cube didn't budge. But here's the thing, I never hit play. The footage started automatically when I picked up the phone. It was already running. On its own. And at the very end of the video, just before it cuts off, the last 3 seconds, the cube turns, slowly, with no hand touching it. Just 1/4 rotation. A shift. A click. I paused the frame. The symbol facing the camera wasn't like the others. It wasn't abstract. It wasn't ancient. It was my name. Alex. Carved in clear, precise lettering. That night, the cube hummed for the first time. A low, slow vibration, like the murmur of a deep, buried thing waking up. I could feel it under the floor. I could feel it in my teeth. I didn't sleep. I didn't touch the cube again, either. But the next morning, it was sitting in the middle of my bed, with a new symbol glowing faintly red on its surface. It wasn't my name this time. It was my mother's. And she's been dead for 10 years. Chapter 3, they started saying my name. The third night is when it got inside me. I didn't hear the whispers like you hear a voice in the hallway or the neighbor's TV through the wall. These didn't hit my ears at all. They vibrated in my ribs. Trickled down my spine. Nestled somewhere between my lungs and heart like a slow-growing infection. The first whisper came just after 3 a.m. I was lying awake, watching the ceiling, too wired to sleep but too tired to move. That's when I felt it, a soft pressure against the base of my skull. Like someone was pressing their lips to the bone and exhaling. And then it spoke. Alex. I bolted upright, heart slamming. Room was empty. Lights off. Cube sitting on the nightstand, symbols faintly glowing like embers buried in ash. I told myself I imagined it. I told myself a lot of things, that night. But the next whisper came 10 minutes later. You let her drown. That one cut through me like glass. I sat frozen, mouth dry, throat closing. Because I knew what it meant. Who it meant. And no one knew that story. Not really. Not how it happened. When I was 17, I'd been drinking with friends at a lake house. Summer heat, cheap vodka, bad choices. A girl named Marcy, shy, sweet, always smiling at me, followed me down to the dock. I told her I was going to swim across the lake and dared her to follow. She couldn't swim. I thought she was kidding when she said that. She wasn't. She slipped under, didn't come back up, and by the time we found her, it was too late. I lied. Said I never saw her. Said I was inside when it happened. Nobody questioned me. They didn't want to believe otherwise. But I've carried it every day since, that moment when I turned and saw her go under. And I didn't move. I never told anyone. Not a soul. But the cube knew. The next night, the whispers multiplied. They didn't just say my name, they sang it, like a twisted lullaby. They chanted it from the pipes, from the gaps between floorboards, from behind the mirror. Sometimes it wasn't even my name they used. Sometimes it was just the sound of my father's voice, the one I haven't heard since I was 8, saying the word disappointment over and over, like a church bell tolling. Other times it was laughter. Not mine. Not human. The cube never moved when I watched it. But I knew, it was listening. Feeding. I started keeping the lights on all night. Music playing. TV running in the background. None of it helped. The whispers weren't around me anymore. They were in me. By the fifth night, I stopped leaving the apartment. Not because I was scared of what was outside. I was scared that if I left, the cube might follow. Chapter 4, I lost my cat and gained a hole in reality. Her name was June. A rescue, grey tabby, small and soft and old enough to judge me with her eyes every time I microwaved dinner. She used to sleep at the foot of the bed, curled like a comma, warm and always present. I liked her company because she didn't talk back and never asked questions about my past. She was the only living thing in my apartment besides me. Sometimes I think she was the only thing keeping me tethered. Then the cube took her. It happened fast. It didn't even feel fair. I was brushing my teeth. Ordinary night. The cube had been silent that day, almost like it was resting. I'd actually started to believe maybe I'd imagined the whole thing. Sleep deprivation. Stress. Maybe some deep-seated guilt bubbling up from therapy I never finished. Then I heard the scream. High-pitched. Not human. I ran into the living room barefoot, heart hammering against my ribs. June was in the center of the floor, mid-hiss, back arched, eyes black with fear. She was staring at the cube, now sitting perfectly centered on the rug. It was glowing. Not red. Not white. Black. A darkness that wasn't lightless, but eating the light around it. And then June, ripped. There's no other word for it. She yelled, loud enough to make my ears ring, and her body jerked forward, like she'd been yanked by something invisible, and in an instant, she was gone. No puff of smoke. No poof or sparkle or dramatic vanishing. Just gone. Except for the smear. A dark, wet stain in the carpet where her paws had been. A few strands of fur caught midair, still falling. I dropped to my knees. My hands shook as I reached out to touch the spot, but it was already cold. Like the warmth had been sucked out along with her. I wanted to scream. I wanted to puke. I wanted to wake up. But more than anything, I wanted to believe it hadn't just happened. That's when I noticed the cube. It had changed again. Not in shape, it was still a perfect cube, the size of a fist, but now it looked denser. Like it had gained weight. Mass. Matter. The surface rippled slightly, like metal warped from heat. I picked it up, and dropped it immediately. It was hot. And it purred. The sound was low, soft, almost pleased. Like it had just finished a good meal. That night, I sat in the farthest corner of the apartment, knees to chest, watching the cube from across the room. I couldn't cry. Couldn't speak. Just watched it. It never moved. But when I finally closed my eyes, just for a second, I heard something whisper, right against my eardrum. One. And I don't know if it meant the cat. Or the first offering. Chapter 5, Dreams that brought back the smell of burning flesh. The night after June vanished, I didn't sleep, not really. But I must have passed out, because I started dreaming. Only it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like falling sideways out of my own skull. There was no beginning. No fade in. Just, there. I stood in a vast, open desert. But this wasn't sand, not really. It was ash. Thick, grey, shifting underfoot like powdered bone. The wind blew in slow, choking gusts, carrying the reek of burnt hair and something else, meat, maybe. Burned meat. The sky above was blood-colored, static, with no sun or stars. Just a pulsing red smear, like a festering wound torn across the heavens. In the distance, there were towers. Dozens of them. Twisted, spiraling spires of what looked like bone, not smooth or clean, but fused and melted together, like they'd been stacked in fire and cooled into grotesque sculptures. Some were topped with skulls. Others with things I didn't recognize, shapes my eyes tried to skip. But all of that blurred when I saw the door. It was black. Massive. Standing alone in the middle of the wasteland like it had been dropped there by mistake. Same color, same impossible sheen as the cube. No hinges, no handle, just a perfectly smooth surface, and symbols carved into its edges. The same symbols I'd seen on the cube. Only bigger. Deeper. They pulsed like open wounds. I walked toward it. I don't remember deciding to, I just did. Each step sank me deeper into the ash, up to my ankles, then my knees. The wind grew louder. I heard whispers carried on it, not words, just emotion. Desperation. Hunger. As I got closer, I saw something else. The door was cracked open, just a sliver. And through the gap, there was movement. Something shifting. Breathing. Watching. And then I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. My sheets were tangled. My shirt was soaked. And the smell. Smoke. Not cigarette smoke. Not kitchen grease. Burning flesh. I scrambled out of bed and stumbled to the mirror. My skin looked normal, no burns, no cuts, but when I pressed my fingers to my neck, I could still feel heat rising off it. That's when I saw the dirt. Black under my fingernails. Gritty. Real. I rushed to the sink, scrubbing my hands raw. The water turned grey. I didn't sleep the next night. Or the night after. But the door didn't care. It came back anyway. And each time it did, it was open a little wider. Chapter 6, Something was living in my walls. The cube started humming again on the 7th night. Not loud, not music. Just a low, steady vibration, like the hum of an old refrigerator on the edge of breaking. Except it wasn't coming from the kitchen. It was coming from everywhere. Through the floorboards. Behind the furniture. In the walls. Especially in the walls. At first, I thought maybe it was electrical, faulty wiring. The kind of noise you notice only when you've gone days without proper sleep. So I unplugged everything. Cut the power to the whole apartment. The humming didn't stop. If anything, it got clearer without the distractions. It had a rhythm. Almost like a heartbeat. Except, too fast. Too irregular. And sometimes it would skip, not just a beat, but a second of reality, like the air stuttered around me. That's when the shadows started changing. They lingered in places they shouldn't have. Stretched across the floor in the wrong direction. Sometimes I'd turn the corner and see a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye, just a sliver, and when I looked, nothing was there. Except that I could still feel it. The weight of something just out of view. Watching. Breathing. One night, while brushing my teeth, I noticed the mirror was warping. Just slightly. Like the surface was breathing, in and out. Slow, shallow, anxious. The reflection of the hallway behind me looked off. Too long. Too dark. I turned around quickly. Nothing. But the moment I faced the mirror again, something moved behind me, inside the wall. A sharp tap 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 from behind the drywall, directly opposite the bathroom mirror. I pressed my ear to the cold tile and held my breath. And I heard it. Scratching. Slow at first, then faster, claws dragging along insulation and wood. Then a sound like fingers. Too many fingers. Skittering and scraping. Searching. I stepped back. The scratching stopped. The wall pulsed, visibly pulsed, once, like something inside it had shifted its weight. I ran my hand along the paint. Warm. I swear to God, the wall was warm. From that night on, I started noticing hairline cracks forming in the drywall. Spiderweb fractures creeping out from the corners. Not just damage. Spreading damage. And each time I tried to patch it, the cracks came back. Wider. Hungrier. The cube hadn't moved. Not physically. But the humming got louder whenever I walked past it. Sometimes it would stutter mid-hum, like a machine hesitating. Or, like it was listening. Then one night, around 3:33 a.m., the drywall behind my headboard made a soft thump. Then another. Then, it whispered. A voice so thin it barely existed. "We see you now." I didn't sleep that night either. Not because I was scared, I'd already moved past fear. I didn't sleep because I knew something was trying to come through. Chapter 7, no one would talk to me after that night. Jamie was the only one who still checked in on me. We weren't even that close anymore, just old college friends who traded memes and drunk birthday calls, but he must have seen something in the way I'd gone dark. Texts ignored. Voicemails left unanswered. I didn't invite him over. He showed up anyway. I opened the door and saw him standing there with a six-pack and a fake smile that collapsed the second he saw my face. "Dude," he said, tilting his head like I'd grown a second one. "You look like you haven't slept in a month." I hadn't, not properly. Maybe minutes here and there, broken by whispers and dreams that bled into waking. I let him in, though I didn't want to. I was scared the apartment would react. It did. The moment he stepped inside, something changed. The lights flickered, subtly, like a breath you almost miss. The air went thick. Jamie stopped in the entryway, mid-sentence. His eyes narrowed. "You got, new furniture or something?" "No," I said. "Why?" "I don't know. It just feels different in here." He walked around slowly, beer unopened in one hand. I saw him glance into the hallway and physically shudder. He didn't comment on the cube. It was sitting on the kitchen counter in full view, humming so faintly I thought maybe I was imagining it. But when he passed it, he winced and rubbed his ear like he'd picked up feedback. We made small talk for maybe 10 minutes, most of it disjointed. I could barely focus, and Jamie kept losing track of what he was saying. His eyes darted to the corners of the room like he thought something was moving behind him. Then, mid-sentence, he stopped completely. "Bro," he whispered, "you have something in your walls." My skin went cold. He stared at the drywall behind the fridge like he could see through it, eyes wide and glassy. "I can hear it breathing." I tried to speak, but my throat locked up. Jamie stepped back from the wall, dropped the six-pack, and turned to me. "I gotta go," he said. "Alex, I'm sorry, I can't, I don't know what this is, but you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be in this place." And then he left. No goodbye. No hug. Just the soft clunk of the door clicking shut. He died the next day. Car accident. Single vehicle. No other cars, no alcohol, no drugs. Just swerved off the road and hit a tree at 70. Killed instantly. The cops called it a freak tragedy. I didn't go to the funeral. I couldn't. Not after the voicemail. It arrived 2 hours after he died. Timestamped at 2:14 a.m. I'd already gone to bed, but something woke me, a high-pitched tone in the air, like a dog whistle I could almost hear. I checked my phone. One new message. From Jamie's number. I played it. Static. Then silence. Then his voice, faint and cracking. "Alex." Then again. "Alex, are you in there?" A pause. Then. It's not your house anymore. His voice cracked into a scream. Get out, Alex. Get out now. The call cut with a burst of static and a wet, dragging sound I can't describe without gagging. I played it 5 times. Then I tried calling the number back. Disconnected. I sent it to myself so I could forward it to someone, anyone. But when I checked again in the morning, it was gone. No voicemail. No record. No timestamp. Only the cube on the counter. Humming. And the faint smell of gasoline in the air. Chapter 8, The Book That Shouldn't Exist. I didn't leave my apartment for 3 days after Jamie died. The cube never stopped humming. I moved it to the hallway closet, wrapped in towels, stuffed in a showbox under my winter boots, and I could still hear it. Not with my ears, but through me. It vibrated somewhere deep in my molars. A constant pressure. Like altitude sickness or a migraine hiding behind my eyes. I started going through old boxes just to keep my hands busy. Anything to avoid looking at the closet door. That's when I found it. It wasn't in my boxes, that's the first thing. It was in an old milk crate full of junk I hadn't touched since college. Books, papers, a broken French press. And right there, tucked beneath a stained notebook I didn't recognize. A book. Small. About the size of a journal. Thick, heavy, and bound in something leathery, but not leather. Skin. I don't mean that metaphorically. This wasn't cowhide or synthetic material. This was human. I could see the pores. The faded stretch of an old scar across the spine. Something that had once belonged to someone, someone who probably didn't donate it willingly. No title. No author. No publisher. Just a burned inscription on the inside front page. Turn. Open. Unmake. The letters were jagged. Uneven. Like they'd been burned in by hand, one at a time. And beneath the line, a symbol. The same one I'd seen on the cube's underside. It looked like an inverted maze, concentric circles that broke apart halfway down, like a blueprint for something impossible. Something that only made sense in reverse. As soon as I touched the page, my palm started to itch. I looked down. A faint mark had appeared beneath the skin of my hand, not ink. Not a burn. A brand. The same symbol, rising like scar tissue beneath the surface. I closed the book, heart slamming. I hadn't read any further yet, but I could feel it, a weight pulling at me. The sense that I'd already agreed to something. That touching the page had been enough. But still, I flipped forward. No chapter titles. No paragraphs. Just single phrases, scattered across yellowed pages. Turn when the breath is still. Open when the name is spoken. Unmake when all else is quiet. And then. It does not want to be opened. It wants to be finished. I slammed the book shut and backed away like it might leap off the table. My hand was still itching. The brand glowing faintly red beneath the skin now, as if backlit. I tried throwing the book in the trash, but by morning, it was back on the table. Open to a new page. This one said. 3 turns before the gate. A 4th for what comes after. I didn't know what that meant. Not yet. But I think the cube did. That night, I dreamed of the red desert again. The door was half open now. And this time, something was knocking from the inside. Chapter 9, The First Turning and the Blood That Came After. I didn't plan to turn the cube. Let me make that clear. It wasn't like I sat down, rolled up my sleeves, and said, let's open the door to hell today. But it had been building, the pressure, the noise, the dreams. The smell of smoke in my sheets. The way the light bent around corners now, just a little too slow. Like reality had to catch up to itself. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. The book kept returning no matter where I hid it. The brand on my palm grew darker. Sometimes I'd catch myself tracing the lines in my sleep, over and over, like I was practicing something I didn't know how to say out loud. And the cube, it started to tilt, ever so slightly, like it was leaning toward me. Inviting. So on the 9th night, sometime between midnight and dawn, because the clock stopped working, I picked it up. It felt warm. Almost comforting. Like it knew me. I sat on the edge of the bed, the hum resonating through my jaw. The symbols shifted like rippling water, never quite still, but I could see the outlines now, a pattern. 3 marked edges. 3 faint grooves where my fingers naturally fit. It felt like a puzzle that had never been meant to be solved. A trap pretending to be a key. But still. I turned it. A slow rotation. 1/3 of a full twist. Click. Everything stopped. The hum died instantly. Like a breath held too long. Then the air in the room grew thick, like I'd been dropped underwater. My vision blurred. Pressure built behind my eyes, in my ears, in my bones. Then the walls groaned. Not creaked. Not shifted. Groaned. Like they were breathing. Or waking. I stumbled to my feet, heart hammering, and that's when I saw it, the first crack in the ceiling above the light fixture, long, thin, and leaking. A slow, viscous drip. Blood. At first I thought it was water with rust, maybe from a pipe. But no, it was too thick, too dark, and the smell. Copper. Rot. Warmth. It dripped faster. Then poured. From the ceiling. From the corners. From the electrical sockets, as if the walls themselves were bleeding. And the cube was still in my hand, hot now. Burning. I ran to the bathroom. Splashed water on my face. Looked up. And froze. My reflection was still staring back. But it wasn't me. It looked like me. Same eyes, same bruised face, same sleep-starved skin. But it was moving too slow. Out of sync by just a hair. I blinked. It didn't. I raised my hand. It followed, a second too late. And then, it smiled. Not a twitch. Not a grin. A full, slow, deliberate smile. I wasn't smiling. I backed away. The lights flickered once. Twice. And when I looked back, the mirror was blank. Just fog. The reflection was gone. I sat on the floor for hours after that. Watching the cube, which now pulsed like a heart, faint and wet. I didn't turn it again that night. But I knew I would. Because something had changed. Not just in my apartment. In me. And the cube had tasted that. Chapter 10, The Ones in the Corners. I used to fear being alone. But I learned quickly, there's something worse. Being watched. It started with a feeling. A presence that hung just outside my line of sight. You know that sensation, when your brain whispers, turn around, even though you're alone in the room. Except this time, when I turned around. There was something in the corner. It didn't move. Didn't breathe. Didn't do anything, just crouched in the shadows behind my TV stand. Curled up in a way that didn't look natural. Or possible. At first, I thought I was imagining it, a pile of coats or a shadow cast from the streetlight. I rubbed my eyes. Looked back. Still there. Pale. Too pale. Almost blue-white. like skin that had been drained. It had no eyes, just smooth, glistening patches where the sockets should have been. Its face looked stretched, as if someone had pulled it too tight over bone and then forgot where everything went. Its mouth hung half open. No teeth. Just a soft, wet hole. Then I blinked. And it was gone. For a while, I thought maybe I'd hallucinated it. Sleep deprivation. Trauma. Guilt over Jamie. Over June. But then it happened again. And again. Each night, a different corner. Behind the couch. On top of the wardrobe. Inside the coat closet, crouched between my jackets like it had always been there. Always still. Always waiting. Until I blinked, and then it was somewhere new. It was like the cube had opened a crack in the room. And now the things from between were slipping in. They never moved when I watched them. Only when I closed my eyes. Or blinked. Or turned my head. Like they needed the pause. Like they lived in the in-between frames of reality, just a fraction out of sync with the rest of the world. One night, I left all the lights on. Every lamp, every fixture, even the oven light. And for the first time, I counted them. 3. One in each corner of the living room. Crouched. Eyeless. Staring. I didn't move. Just sat on the floor, hugging my knees, trying not to blink. My eyes burned. Tears streamed down my cheeks. They never shifted. Never breathed. Until the hallway light flickered. Just once. The moment it dimmed, even for that single half second, they all shifted closer. Inches. Like a stutter in the timeline. I screamed. The light snapped back on. They were still again. But I could see it now. The difference in distance. They were testing the boundaries. Figuring out the rules. And I knew what they wanted. To be seen. But only in glimpses. Only as they got closer. I tried sleeping with sunglasses on. Didn't help. Tried staying awake for 3 days. Didn't help. Eventually, I stopped going near the corners of any room. I kept my bed in the middle of the floor, with lights on every side. But I started waking up with bruises. Small ones, on my arms. On my neck. On the inside of my thighs. Finger-shaped. Then I made the mistake of turning the lights off. Just once. There was a power surge, brief, just long enough to plunge everything into pitch black. I blinked. And in that second of dark, they were right next to me. One on each side of the bed. Smiling now.
The story may end here, but the darkness never sleeps. Like this video to keep the shadows stirring. Share your whispers in the comments. Your voice shapes the next nightmare. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Gothic Hour Stories and Mysteries, where every tale lingers and every soul leaves a mark. The Gothic Hour awaits.